Trying to see. Hey everybody. Not sure if anyone is on the live yet. Trying to see if we can wait for some folks to join in. Okay, wanted to wait just a minute, and it's just about a minute, so we're gonna get started, and hopefully a lot more folks join in. Peace, everyone. Welcome. This is a much weighted conversation about death and rebirth, ancestors. Um, and I've decided to add the concept of grief in there. Not sure how much of that we're really going to discuss. Um, and I think I added it just because there was someone that indicated that there was an interest in, you know, discussing that. And mostly, really, I'd like to touch on the subject of ancestors. And just a funny story, really quick. Today, somehow, it seemed like knowing that this conversation was going to happen, there were just like a lot of different messages that were coming through, downloads coming through regarding what to do to prepare for this conversation. So part of what was done was, like just preparing the space basically, libations. And other than what I did, as I went into various places and spaces throughout the day, I began noticing messages, from spirit regarding what to talk about, because it's a very broad topic to discuss. And so it's a bit challenging to really like figure out how to pinpoint what it is that we're supposed to be discussing. Um, and one of the things that came up was the discussion as the discussion rather on Dios de los Muertos, and I think I'm saying that correctly, which is referred to as the Day of the Dead, which is as close, I think, that this culture, American culture, really gets to celebrating ancestors, which I don't even believe is really an American tradition. It's more so something that, um, you know, that is adopted, right? Well, American in a sense that, well, we'll leave the historical part alone because I'm not really that much familiar with how that whole thing started anyway. Well, let's just focus on, the holiday that's celebrated, which is referred to as Dios de los Muertos, which is the Day of the Dead. That is something that is very common in a lot of different cultures, okay, to celebrate those who have transitioned, right? And those who have transitioned are referred to as an ancestor, right? What is an ancestor? An ancestor is someone typically from your family, from your bloodline, that has transitioned and is now assisting and supporting you, um, in a different way, we'll say. Okay, so now that we know what an ancestor is, if you'll notice a lot of times, in tarot, in a lot of the messages, I'm always picking up on those energies. Okay. And this is part of the reason why I wanted to discuss this with you today. So that way it becomes a bit more clear about what we mean when we're talking about ancestors. So, in relation to ancestors, we celebrate what we refer to as Dios de los Muertos. In Haiti, this is referred to as, I believe it's called Feds Ancet. Um, there's also a reference to All Souls Day. Those are all celebrations of ancestors, those who have been there before. Now, during the Haitian celebration of the ancestors, typically what happens is a lot of folks go to cemeteries to honor those who have been there before, their families, family members. What they do is they make very strong coffee, and sometimes they'll make both sweet coffee and unsweetened coffee, right? Both are offered along with, typical things like bread, and these family members would go to cemeteries and they would leave these offerings um, by grave sites, symbolic of, connecting with those that were there before, assisting and supporting them. And the coffee that is offered, usually the sweet and the unsweetened coffee, it's usually said that both are offered because both have their own purpose. So bitter coffee typically is associated with more like, um, I believe it's associated with more protective energy, and the sweet coffee is more so of like bringing in the blessings, bringing in the sweetness in your life. Okay, so both are offered, and also it's said that both are offered because there are some ancestors that prefer to drink unsweetened coffee, and there are some that prefer to drink sweetened coffee. So, therefore, both of those things, both of those drinks are offered. And the significance of that is, of course, to honor those that were there before, to let them know that their work hasn't been forgotten, their energy hasn't been forgotten. And the idea is, in doing those things, is to reconnect with that energy, to to let that energy, to let those energies know that their presence is still honored, appreciated. And there are different ways that our ancestors let us know that they are continually with us, watching over us, letting us know that they're here. And I'm sure many of you have had various experiences with, you know, personal experiences with your ancestors. Some of you may even say that you've seen them, you know, in the daylight. I've actually heard of, you know, someone mentioned that when someone passed recently, there was a story, and of course, there's like a whole bunch of stories like that when you're talking about a place like IT. Um, Someone mentioned how the person had just transitioned, and I think it was some sort of like unwrongful death, and someone mentioned that they saw the person literally like walking through town and, going towards like some sugarcane field of some sort like that. And from, hearing that story, I asked about, why did that happen? And the person was like, well, sometimes that happens because, in circumstances where the person is, their life is wrongfully taken from them. And stories like that are very much common, in a place called IET, right? So that's one kind of like way that like spirits, guides, make themselves know, like they literally show themselves physically, right? Um, Sometimes, depending on how close you were to that person, you know, you will get a sense of them with your sense of smell. And if you're really in tune, like that's not something that's uncommon. It won't be uncommon for you to For example, like if you had a grandfather that loved, smoking cigars, it wouldn't be uncommon for you to all of a sudden just get a whiff of that that grandfather's cigar. Or, if you were close to a grandmother or grandfather of some sort, it wouldn't be uncommon um, to smell the perfume that they used to wear. Okay, these are things that may seem a bit odd, and they're really um, showing you the connection between what we call the living and I'm not going to say the non-living, because they are living, and this it's just they've taken a different form. So that's really the connection between this, I would say, the spiritual realm and the material realm. Okay, and being able to do that in itself, if you really think about it, like being able to sense and smell, someone's perfume just out of nowhere that has transitioned, that really shows you the connection between, like, that really shows you how thin the veil is. We already talked about how thin the veil is, right? That really shows you how thin the veil is between the land of the material and the spiritual. And how do you explain something like that? How does science explain it? Well, as far as I know, they really haven't come up with ways to explain something like that. So the connection we have between the spiritual realm and the material, if we are tuned in, is very strong. And you'll find that people with those types of experiences, for example, where they'll they'll smell the person's perfume, or they'll smell their cigar, and sometimes it's actually a voice. If the person used to sing, you'll hear the person sing out of nowhere. um what's also common is the person communicating with you through dreams. Okay, if you're someone who is very much in tune, one of the things that you'll notice is that, especially, again, especially if you are very much connected to that person, they will come and speak to you through dreams. They will give you instructions. They will give you words of encouragement. They will give you words to calm you, words to connect you to a higher source. Those are things that are very, very much common when you are connected to ancestors. And some people may deem that a bit weird or out of the norm. And for many, that's a way of life. Um, in in Haitian Vodun, ancestor ancestor reverence, honoring ancestors, is a way of life, because Vodun is a way of life. Vodun honors the spirit as well as the material, as well as, you know, again, the physical, right? All things are honors. There's this energy of synchronicity. All things are synchronous. We often say that the person doesn't die, they transition, because the idea is that they transition to a different form. The idea is they're still technically here, they're just here in a different form. And those of us that are connected know this. We know this, we've experienced it. It's very common, right? There are different, when we're talking about ancestors, we're talking about those who are now being honored in a different realm, right? We're talking about those who are being honored in the spiritual, non-material, although sometimes even the non-material can materialize itself, but that's another conversation. So in Haitian Vodun, there's like a whole um, group of lois that represent the realm of the spiritual, the non-material, and that is the Giddes. Okay, a group of lois. Lois are spirit guides. Lois are also principles too. They're principles of life that are represented by the what we refer to as deities. So the Giddes represent, you know, the spirits and energies of those who have transitioned, who have passed on. And the Met, the master, the head of the Giddes is referred to as Baron Samadi. Baron Samadi is the is considered the head of the cemetery, and there are a lot of things I'm still learning about the Giddes as well as Baron Samadi. And from what I know, there are a couple things that I know. Baron Samadi is represented by uh, as this male energy, very energetic. When Baon Samadi comes, and possesses someone in a Vodou ceremony, what you'll typically see is, mm, what you'll typically see is someone, represented dressed in all black, which represents the realm of the unknown, right? Dark black, the realm of the unknown. It also represents power, contrary to the way in which, the West uses the term black. Um, Black represents power, it represents the world of the unknown, it represents dark feminine energy. And again, that's another conversation. So Bauman wears those colors to signify his power um, in the realm of the unknown. And with his wife, Grande Brigitte, um, which I believe is represented, as many deities in other cultures. With his wife, Grande Brigitte, they rule the realm of the unknown. And they're considered to be very, very powerful beings with abilities to heal, abilities to give you access to unknown, or what would typically be known as uh, hidden information. They're healers, they're life givers, they're teachers. So Baum with his wife Grande Brigitte rule the realm of what we consider to be the realm of the unknown. So there's a plethora of various Giddes that are represented, you know, in that realm. We could also talk about, you know, I'm I'm trying to think. I believe Legba is also represented as that, as um, part of that group or that family of Loas as well. And Legba is many will know as the waymaker, the person who shows the way to life, shows the way for the laws to enter the realm of the material. Legba is considered to be the trickster and has access to both the material and the spiritual realm. It's like many know that it's challenging to get to. Um, it's challenging for the spiritual and the physical realm to connect unless Ligba is involved. Ligba is basically the one that opens the way for that connection to be made. If you're trying to reach any spiritual entity, Legba is the one that opens the way for that to happen. And even when we're talking about ancestors, access to ancestors, connection to ancestors, Legba is the one that opens the way for that. Okay. So really the discussion on ancestors is something that is more prevalent within cultures that actually honor, have an appreciation uh, for the concept and respect. I will say that's a huge part of it. Honor, appreciation, and respect for those that have transitioned. So we know this in Haitian Vodun that ancestors are honored, and there's a specific date. Um, I want to say season more like, because even though they are brought gifts to be honored around, from the end of October till the beginning of November, and I actually wouldn't even say it's a season. It's like it's really a lifestyle. Ancestor reverence is a lifestyle because if you're a voodooist, you know the importance of connecting with your spirit guides, your ancestors on your mother's side as well as your father's side. You know the importance of pouring libation to invoke their energies. And you will notice a difference when you begin to do so. So yeah. um Ancestors really represent a way of connecting, another way of connecting with life, I would say. A lot of folks think of and honoring ancestors, as death and this and that. It's really a way of honoring life in a different way. It's part of why ancestor worship or ancestor honoring is so important, is because it allows us to see the importance of life here on this realm. And I think oftentimes we take that for granted. We really take for granted the beauty and gift that we've been given, on this realm. We're not, it's like so much happens on a daily basis where it could be easy to not appreciate the existence and the gift that we've been given. And this is why it's called the present, right? And so, ancestors, part of the greatest gift that they provide for us is they help us to honor, cherish, and appreciate life. Because if you've ever lost anyone, and any of you, if you've ever lost anyone, you will notice that nothing brings you an appreciation for life more than the loss of a life. And again, we're not saying that life is lost, forever. However, that physical manifestation of it, the materialization of it, is it comes and goes, but for a season, right? So that's another important aspect, I believe, that should be mentioned when we're discussing ancestor worship or ancestors. So ancestors allow us to appreciate the life that we have. It allow us um, to appreciate the gift of this thing called life and really see it as just that, as a gift, right? This moment that you've been given, that you've been afforded, uh, it's really a season that you've been afforded to experience what it's like to be in the material, in the material realm. It's a gift that you've been given to be afforded this opportunity to experience this thing called life. Although a lot of folks may not see it as that, because many times, they may get blindsided and distracted and so on and so forth with so many things that are happening, work life balance, as they'll say, um, so often so that these distractions create this illusion that, you know, that gets them disconnected basically from their spiritual walk. So that's another thing that ancestors and honoring and respecting ancestors, what it does for us here in the realm of, you know, the material realm. And it's important to acknowledge that. It's important to really put that into perspective, because it really shows us that a lot of the things that we tend to take for granted, it shows us not to take those things for granted. Um, like the breath that you have, which can, at any second be cut off, right? When you go and you visit the the physical remnants of someone whose spirit is no longer um, attached to that physical material part of them, and you're looking at that person that is so still, it's one of the most awakening experiences. And this is why I say that it's like nothing really connects you to and appreciate it, nothing really connects you to and really makes you appreciate life more than the loss of life, right? It's like that saying that, you never know what you have until it's gone, type of thing. So this is really just, I want to say it's just a beginning conversation on ancestors, because most likely you'll be hearing more about ancestors and the concept of grieving. That's a very, very long subject. And again, if you have questions on that, I'll do my best to try to answer based on what I know, and I can only answer based on what I know, which is not that much in relation to um, the scientific aspect of it. I can only refer to it from the perspective of someone who has experienced, you know, the loss of the physical body of someone, right? So, or the transitioning, someone transitioning from physical to spiritual. So, you can definitely post comments and questions that you may have. I'll be, glad to answer them as well as I could. Um, you know, and that's really it in terms of the conversation. I believe that, there may be additional conversations based on, how things go. But this is basically an initial one to give you a sense of what we're talking about when we're referring to ancestors, and really give you like a more cultural perspective on how different cultures really honor and respect the ancestors. All right, y'all. If you have any questions while you are watching this, please post them in the comments and I'd be happy to answer them. I hope this helped in, your understanding of what ancestors are and the importance of them. And I will definitely see you in the next video. All right.